Danzo Shimura. Danzo Shimura was basically the most hated guy in all of Konoha, and honestly, he earned every bit of that reputation. This elder founded and led Root, an underground organization that operated in the shadows, which is why people called him the Darkness of the Shinobi. He spent decades pulling sketchy moves and undermining people left and right, all while claiming he was doing it for the village's good. Back in his academy days, he was buddies and rivals with Hiruzen Sarutobi, but things got real during the First Shinobi World War, when their team got cornered by enemy forces. When someone needed to sacrifice themselves as a decoy, he froze up while Hiruzen stepped forward. Though the second Hokage ended up taking the role instead, and named Hiruzen as his successor. This moment basically broke something in him, and he spent the rest of his life scheming to become Hokage himself. He created Root as his personal army, handpicked young shinobi, and turned them into emotionless weapons. During the Third Shinobi World War, he made a deal with Hanzo to eliminate the Akatsuki, which led to Yahiko's death and Nagato's transformation into pain. He also worked with Orochimaru, getting his right arm replaced with one embedded with Sharingan eyes and Hashirama cells. When the Uchiha clan planned a coup, he manipulated the situation perfectly, stealing Shisui's eye and convincing Itachi to massacre his entire clan to protect his little brother Sasuke. After Pain's attack on Konoha, he finally got his shot at becoming Hokage by convincing the daimyo that the village needed his harsh leadership style. His end came during the Kage Summit when everything unraveled spectacularly. After being exposed for manipulating the meeting, he fled but got cornered by Tobi and Sasuke at the Samurai Bridge. When Sasuke demanded answers about the Uchiha massacre, he smugly confirmed everything, which sent Sasuke into a rage. The battle was absolutely brutal, with him using Izanagi to cheat death multiple times by sacrificing the Sharingan on his arm one by one. He fought with everything he had, using wood release and wind techniques, but Sasuke's Genjutsu tricked him into thinking that he had one more eye left when he was actually out of chances. Sasuke's Chidori's sharp spear pierced right through him, and in his final desperate move, he grabbed Karin as a hostage to use Shisui's eye, but Sasuke didn't hesitate to stab through Karin to get to him and deliver the killing blow. As he lay dying, he thought about Hiruzen and how he could never measure up to him, not even achieving his dream of becoming Hokage. With his last breath, he activated the reverse force symbol sealing technique, trying to take Sasuke and Tobi down with him, but they escaped. He did manage to destroy Shisui's Sharingan though, denying Tobi that prize. His death stands as one of the most satisfying and deserved endings in anime history because this guy had it coming for decades. Sure, some fans try to paint him as a misunderstood patriot who made hard choices for the greater good, but that's complete nonsense when you look at his actual track record. He manipulated children into becoming killing machines, orchestrated the genocide of an entire clan, stole organs from dead allies, betrayed everyone who trusted him, and caused countless deaths through his scheming. The man literally turned Konoha's protection into his personal power trip, destroying lives and families while hiding behind the excuse of village security. His actions created more enemies for Konoha than he ever eliminated, and his methods were so twisted that even his own village leadership couldn't stomach working with him. When he finally got what was coming to him, it felt like justice being served after years of watching him get away with murder. The fact that he died reaching for power he was never worthy of, abandoned by everyone, and remembered as a villain rather than a hero he thought he was, makes his death not just satisfying, but absolutely perfect. Dio Brando. Dio Brando is the main antagonist in the original universe of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, featured primarily in Phantom Blood and Stardust Crusaders. Born in northeast London to an abusive drunk father, he killed the man with poison to escape a miserable life, aiming to steal the Joestar fortune by worming his way into their family after getting adopted by George Joestar. He tormented Jonathan Joestar while keeping up a fake gentleman act, eventually shifting from petty cruelty, like putting Jonathan's dog into a furnace, to darker plans, like poisoning George to take over the inheritance. After discovering the power of the stone mask, he tested it on street thugs, unintentionally created a vampire, and learned of the mask's true potential. Cornered for his crimes, he tried to stab Jonathan but killed George instead, when the latter shielded his son. He then used the mask to turn himself into a vampire, shrugging off bullets and slaughtering constables before battling Jonathan in a burning mansion. Jonathan managed to impale him and set him ablaze, but Dio survived. resurfacing to drain blood and create an army of zombies in the Wind Knight's lot while seeking to conquer London. Dio faced Jonathan again, where he summoned powerful undead minions, froze his enemy's blood with his vampiric powers, and nearly defeated Jonathan before Jonathan turned the tide using Ripple and Fire, sending Dio off a cliff. Despite this, Dio decapitated himself to survive and was retrieved by his loyal servant, Wang Chan. Later, he ambushed Jonathan and Arena's honeymoon ship by causing a zombie outbreak while intending to steal Jonathan's body. In their final confrontation, Jonathan sabotaged the ship to explode, protecting Arena while holding Dio's head. He took Jonathan's body as the ship sank and slipped into a coffin to plot his return. Years later, his coffin was recovered by fishermen in Africa. Now free, he roamed from Egypt to Japan, fathering children like Giorno Giovanna and manipulating others, including Enya the Hag, Polnareff, and Enrico Pucci, while gaining his Stan, the World. Hiding in his Cairo mansion, he sent Stan users to eliminate the Joestars, aiming to fully merge with Jonathan's body to unlock his power while reading books and feeding on women's blood, biding his time. When the Joestar group finally reached him, he showcased the World's time stop ability while toying with Polnareff and eventually fleeing when sunlight threatened him. As the final battle loomed, he pursued Joseph and Kakyoin through Cairo's streets, effortlessly countering Kakyoin's attacks using time stop and killing him, while Kakyoin managed to reveal the World's power to Joseph before dying. Dio then attacked Joseph, who relayed the message to Jotaro and set up the final showdown. The battle with Jotaro was brutal and relentless, with Dio dropping a steamroller and attempting to finish him while using time stop to gain the upper hand. Just as he reveled in victory, he suddenly realized that time had frozen and he was unable to move. But this time, it was Jotaro who stopped time after he unlocked his Stan's true power, similar to the World's. With this, Jotaro countered Dio's moves and wounded his leg repeatedly to stall until sunrise. Dio, desperate, blinded Jotaro with his own blood to escape, but Jotaro caught him, and their final clash ended when Jotaro's punch connected with Dio's kick, exploiting the weakened point on the World's leg caused by Dio's earlier attack. Jotaro's hand broke, but Dio's upper body crumbled, and his head shattered, ending his centuries-long rampage. The Speedwagon Foundation recovered Dio's remains, using a transfusion with Joseph's blood and Dio's stolen lower body to revive Joseph, ensuring Dio's power would not claim another Joestar. His remains were left under the Sahara sunrise to disintegrate, fitting for a villain whose life was spent clawing for immortality and dominance over others. Seeing him disintegrate under the sun with no grand speech and no last-minute save is the kind of closure that makes you exhale, knowing that evil truly met its end, giving the most iconic villain in anime the most befitting exit. Mosgus. Mosgus is the scariest inquisitor in Berserk, a fanatic who uses God as an excuse to torture and kill anyone he feels like. Before the mess in Albion, he picked up a bunch of deformed people and told them their creepy looks and dark urges were needed by God, turning them into his loyal torture squad. On the way to Albion, villagers tried to get back at him for killing their families over food donations, but he didn't care. He smashed a rebel's skull with his holy book and ordered the rest to be executed on the breaking wheel, then moved on like nothing happened. Once in Albion, he acted like a kind priest, luring refugees in before dragging them to torture chambers, claiming pain would save their souls. He forced Varnish to watch, telling her torture was part of their faith. Every day he slammed his head on the ground 1,000 times in prayer, calling it precious while bragging about being God's enforcer. He hunted heretics and got fixated on Casca when he found the brand of sacrifice on her and threw her into an Iron Maiden while praising himself for it. When the demonic forces hit Albion, he and his crew turned into pseudo-apostles after getting stung by the egg of the perfect world, thinking it was the sign that God had chosen them. He decided burning Casca would end all the chaos, so he dragged her to the stake while telling the terrified refugees that God would save them if they stayed loyal and let Casca die. Guts showed up to stop him. The Black Swordsman fought his disciples while he kept pushing for Casca's execution. When Isidro rescued Casca, he flew after them, ready to crush anyone in his way, and ended up fighting Guts. In his pseudo-apostle form, he was tough. He blocked hits with his stone-hard body and pounded Guts with his winged fists, nearly killing him, while ignoring the monsters overrunning Albion. But Guts noticed a small wound he had managed to leave on him earlier and slipped explosives into it. He accidentally lit the bombs while charging a fire attack, blowing open his chest just enough for Guts to drive his sword in. Burning alive, he tried to take Guts with him, but Guts flipped him off the wall, sent him crashing down in flames, and ironically lighting fires that saved some refugees from the dead. Mozgus' death is one of the most satisfying in anime because he was the ultimate fake holy man who hid behind faith while torturing, killing, and controlling people without a shred of guilt. A lot of apostles die in brutal ways in Berserk, and it's always cool to watch Guts tear them apart, but Mozgus takes the top spot. He turned faith into a weapon to justify everything he did, even when he turned into a monster. Seeing him get blown up by his own flames and crushed by Guts was pure payback.
Gamer Sups is an energy and nootropic formula designed to be a healthier, cheaper, and more effective beverage over energy drinks for gamers or the modern anime weeb on the go. Its blend of essential vitamins, caffeine, and nootropics provide a consistent boost with no jitters and no crash. It has 0 sugar, less than 1 carb, and less than 1 calorie per serving, so it's keto and diabetic safe. Plus there's sugar-free options. I personally drink it all the time to be able to grind out these straight to the point and informative videos for you guys, and they'll likely be the only sponsor you'll ever see on this channel. So help the channel stay mostly sponsor free by clicking the link in our description, picking from the many tasty and uniquely named flavors on the website, and use our code ANIMEX at checkout to save 10% on your order. It would be a huge help for us. Also, pick yourself up a aesthetically interesting waifu cup while you're at it too. They're collectible. But anyway.
Yamori. Yakumo Omori, better known by his alias Yamori and as 13th Ward's Jason, was a top dog in Aogiri Tree and ran the White Suits in the 13th Ward, famous for being brutal and loving every second of it. Before all that, he lost his mom and started hanging around with guys like Lantern, even jumping into an ambush against Arima and Fura, where he almost finished off Fura before Arima showed up and messed him up, forcing him to run for it. He ended up getting caught and thrown into Cochlea because of what he knew, and while stuck there, he got tortured so badly by an investigator that his mind flipped, convincing himself he was the one in control, picking up every method of torture he could, and getting hooked on it. After getting out, he started looking for people to torture for fun, eventually running into Naki, beating him, then taking him in as sort of a younger brother, though Naki later ended up in Cochlea trying to protect him. Yamori also went to Asaki Fuguchi for new pliers after losing his old pair to Rize. Threw Asaki out when he tried to talk back, and later got jumped by Mato and Amon, fighting them off before dipping. When Aogiri ordered him to find Rize, or anyone who smelled like her, he, Nico, and Ayato raided Anteku and grabbed Kaneki, planning to make him his new toy. He dragged Kaneki to his torture room, injected him with RC suppressants to keep his ghoul side down, and cut off his fingers and toes over and over, forcing Kaneki to eat them so that they would grow back just so he could cut them off again. He shoved a centipede in Kaneki's ear for good measure, trying to completely break him, and even forced Kaneki to choose who would die between 2 prisoners, only to kill them both anyway, showing he was never going to let Kaneki off the hook. When CCG attacked the 11th Ward base, Yamori was ready to eat Kaneki, but Kaneki turned the tables, bit him, and broke free, starting a fight that would flip Yamori's entire world upside down. Kaneki, fully embracing his ghoul side now, overpowered Yamori, biting and eating his Kagune while Yamori left lying there, helpless in the room where he tortured so many others. Juzo Suzuya came across Yamori while he was hanging on, and finished him off. After that, they took Yamori's Kakuho and turned it into Juzo's Quinke, which he named 13th Jason. After spending his life torturing others and thinking he was untouchable, he finally got a taste of what he did to so many people. He crumbled in the same place he thought he was in control, faced fear and pain without any way out, and seeing him go down like that felt like the world was setting itself right for once, showing that no matter how cruel someone is, it will always catch up to them in the end. Neferpitou. Neferpitou, known as Pito, was a cat-like chimera ant in the first royal guard born for the king, personally named by the queen and showing no hint of a past life like the others. From the start, Pito's creepy curiosity for humans and nin was clear. They first showed up in the NGL, scaring Ramat with their aura and finding Pakul under a pile of bones, poking into his brain to pull out Nin's secrets, testing themselves as a specialist and feeding Pakul to the queen. They ran the ceremony, forcing squad leaders to awaken Nin, then sent Kite with Gon and Killua, and in one swift move cut off Kite's arm and later killed him while fascinated by his crazy slots. Apparently, Kite's death broke Gon and would become a catalyst for his rage and his quest for revenge. Keeping Kite's corpse, Pito tried to fix him by turning him into a puppet for training. Following the queen's death, Pito followed the king to East Gorto to help start the selection, forcing millions to awaken Nin while killing off 5 million people for the king's army. Pito handled organizing the puppets and suppressing rebels while manipulating the king's enemies, even controlling the dead king of the country to help herd citizens. When Meruem ripped off his arm during a gungi match, Pito dropped everything to heal him, then resumed guarding him while experimenting on Palm to turn her into a hybrid puppet. During the palace invasion, Pito was blasted away when they tried to attack Netero, but quickly returned by activating Dr. Blythe that kept them in place. Pito was ready to fight, but was forced to heal and protect Komugi by order of the king. They were determined to carry out the order, and later begged Gon for time to heal Komugi when the furious boy threatened to kill them if they didn't restore Kite. Even after breaking their own arm to show their lack of malice, it wasn't enough to subdue Gon's rage. With no other option, Pito agreed to go with them to Beijing to heal Kite, if they were allowed to heal Komugi. Gon finally gave them an hour to finish the surgery. After healing Komugi, Pito tried to fake cooperation and went with Gon to Beijing but planned to kill Gon after Poof tricked them into believing that they retrieved Komugi. Upon seeing Kite's body, Pito revealed they could no longer bring him back to life before activating Dr. Blythe to heal their broken arm. Seeing Gon in a hopeless state, Pito declared finishing him off for the sake of the king, only for Gon to unleash all his rage and potential in one go. Using a Nin condition, Gon transformed into his peak form just to take Pito down. Pito tried to fight back with Tepsakura, but couldn't match Gon's monstrous power. Outside the castle, he kicked them into the air, punched them down into a mountain, and kept smashing their skull until it broke. Even in death, Pito's loyalty to the king kept their Nin going, using their corpse to attack Gon one last time until Killua intervened, letting Gon finish Pito off for good with an explosive attack. While the Gon vs Pito fight was more like a massacre than a decent clash, this scene makes one of the most satisfying in anime because it shuts down a monster who hurt and killed without hesitation, tortured victims for information, reanimated corpses as playthings, and orchestrated genocide on a massive scale. They showed no empathy for human suffering and treated mass murder as a game. Now, don't take their action towards Komugi as an act of caring for a human being. They did it purely out of loyalty to the king and nothing else. If the king orders them to wipe all innocent children off the face of the earth, they wouldn't hesitate to execute it. In fact, they'd be happy to do it. This scene is one of the most unforgettable moments in anime history, not only because of Pito's most deserved death, but also because of how far Gon would go for the people he cared about, giving us one of the most jaw-dropping transformations we've seen in anime. Light Yagami. Light Yagami is seriously one of anime's most twisted protagonist-turned-villain characters ever created. This guy starts off as your typical overachiever student with good grades and a strong moral compass. His life changes the second he gets his hand on the Death Note, a supernatural notebook used by the Shinigami to sustain their life, by claiming the remaining lifespan of those whose names is written on it. With the power to eliminate anyone by just seeing their face and writing down their name, everything goes straight to hell for him. His genius intellect becomes this terrifying weapon, combined with a god complex that makes him believe he's entitled to judge who lives and dies. Most protagonists you root for, but with him, you're literally waiting for karma to catch up. Light's transformation into pure evil happens fast, and it's genuinely disturbing to watch. He starts by killing criminals, convincing himself he's making the world better. At this point, he is mostly deemed as a savior for getting rid of the bad guys to save innocent lives. Hiding under the mask of Kira, he quickly earns public support and later gains a cult following. But when the risk of getting exposed comes into play, the savior gradually turns into a heartless executioner. Anyone who stands in his way, the good or the bad, is taken out immediately. The worst part, it isn't just the numbers though, it's how he treats the people who actually care about him. He manipulates his own father and watches the man suffer emotionally over the Kira case while knowing full well he's the one causing all that pain. When FBI agent Ray Pember starts investigating him, he doesn't just kill the guy, He forces Rei to write down the names of his entire team to ensure they all die too. He also gets rid of Rei's fiancée, who attempted to follow Kira's tracks. Then there's Misa Amane, this girl who's completely devoted to him and genuinely loves him, but he treats her like garbage. He uses her Shinigami eyes, manipulates her feelings, and puts her in danger repeatedly without caring if she lives or dies. With all the killings he's done, nothing is more deplorable than the time he manipulated a Shinigami named Rim into killing L and his associate Watari, whose only crime was trying to stop his murder spree. His body count includes police officers, task force members, and countless innocent people who just happen to get in his way. But here's the thing that makes him truly evil. He never feels bad about any of it. He actually thinks that he's doing the right thing and that people should worship him for it. The guy genuinely thinks his judgment is perfect and that he deserves to rule over humanity. He completely lost touch with reality and any sense of human decency. His downfall comes courtesy of Nier, L's successor, who turns out to be just as smart, but way more patient. The final showdown happens in this warehouse, where he thinks he set up the perfect trap to kill Nier and his entire team. He used Hira Mikami, one of his devoted followers, who also gained the Shinigami eyes, and plans to use the Death Note to wipe out Nier's team. But Nier saw it coming from miles away, and switched out Mikami's real Death Note with a fake one. When Mikami gets exposed and starts counting down for their deaths, Light gets ahead of himself and declares victory. So when the moment comes and nobody dies, his whole plan falls apart. You can literally see the panic set in as he realizes he's been outplayed. His carefully constructed facade finally cracks, and he has this complete meltdown where he admits he's Kira while laughing like a maniac. He then attempts to write Nier's name on the scrap of note hidden in his watch, but Masuda, one of his devoted subordinates, shoots him. He then tries to make one last desperate play by begging Ryuk to kill everyone in the warehouse, but Ryuk basically tells him the game is over. His final moments are spent running through the warehouse, bleeding and terrified, experiencing the same fear he put on those people he killed. As for the final act, Ryuk writes his name on the Death Note. He dies alone in an empty warehouse, scared and completely powerless, which is exactly how someone like him deserves to go out. After years of playing God and deciding who gets to live or die, he meets his end through the exact same supernatural power he used to terrorize people. True justice finally caught up with him, and it felt absolutely deserved. Envy. Envy was the fourth homunculus created by Father, made to spread chaos and bloodshed with his shape-shifting powers. He used these powers to spark wars, like when he killed an Ishvalan child while disguised as an Amastrian soldier, triggering the brutal Ishval Civil War. He found the whole thing entertaining and never hid how much he enjoyed the suffering he caused. He later showed up in Rail and pretended to be Father Cornello to keep Father's plans on track after Edward Elric exposed the fake prophet. When he and Lust found Edward at the Fifth Laboratory, he killed the younger Slicer brother without hesitation and knocked Edward out cold. He took May Hughes' life by transforming into Hughes' wife, using the man's love for his family to lower his guard. This murder would haunt the Elrics and fuel Roy Mustang's rage. When greed was captured by Wraith, Envy nearly lost it during a heated argument, only stopping when Father stepped in. After Lust's death at Mustang's hands, he took her place as the homunculized representative, keeping Dr. Marco a prisoner while continuing Father's plans. During the chaos with Gluttony, he fought Ling Yao, and they both ended up in Gluttony's subspace along with Edward. He admitted his role in the Ishvalan War, which earned him a punch from Edward, then transformed into his monstrous form to kill them. Even after swallowing Edward, he couldn't fully destroy him, and Edward managed to use Envy's Philosopher's Stone to escape, draining many souls from him in the process. Later, when Scar arrived with Mei Chang, Edward exposed Envy's role in the Ishvalan War to Scar, stirring tension that nearly allowed the Elrics to break free. Envy tried to keep them quiet by bringing them to Bradley, later freeing Kimberly to help hunt down Scar and recapture Marco. In Briggs, Envy fell into a trap set by Zampano, leading to a fight where he lost control and revealed his own crimes, giving Marco the opening to destroy most of the souls inside his Philosopher's Stone. This reduced him to a tiny pathetic creature, forced to hide in a jar while Mei planned to take him back to Jing. But he manipulated Mei's guilt to return to Central, where he hijacked a mannequin soldier to regain his full form and hunted her down again. During the chaos, he confessed to killing Hughes, taunting Mustang until the Colonel burned him down to his true fragile state. Mustang was stopped from finishing him off by the others, and Envy tried to manipulate the group into turning on each other, only to watch them stand together despite their differences. Edward then called him out for being jealous of humans and their bonds, a truth that shattered what was left of Envy's pride. Unable to handle the shame of being pitied, he pulled out his own Philosopher's Stone and crushed it, ending his life with tears in his eyes while whispering a final goodbye to Edward. Envy's death is one of the most satisfying in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and in all of anime because of the countless terrible things he did. The beating he took from Mustang was the payback he had coming. A lot of fans probably wanted Mustang to finish him off for good, like he did with Lust, but watching Envy get knocked down to such a pathetic state was exactly the kind of ending he deserved. He wasn't just taken out physically, he was wrecked mentally and emotionally, to the point that he chose to end his own life rather than keep living in that sorry state. Honestly, there's nothing more satisfying than seeing someone that cruel go out like that. Mahito. Mahito was a special grade cursed spirit born from the hatred and fear humans have for each other, and he lived to spread that fear back tenfold. He led a crew with Jogo, Hanami, and Dagon, aiming to wipe out humanity and replace it with cursed spirits like himself. He crosses the line immediately when he manipulates Junpei Yoshino, a lonely boy, by killing his bullies and pretending to be his friend. He feeds Junpei lies, lures him in the darkness, only to laugh in his face as he forces a grotesque transformation on him, before killing him in front of Yuji Itadori. Mahito doesn't flinch as Yuji screams in horror, showing how far he'll go for just a little bit of fun. He keeps stacking up cruelty, tearing apart bodies and spirits for experiments, playing with souls through idle transfiguration, like a kid breaking insects for amusement. He turns crowds into writhing monsters in Shibuya, unleashing hell for the joy of it, while mocking human fear and suffering. One of his cruelest moments is killing Nanami Kento. He waits for Nanami to be injured and exhausted before placing a hand on his chest and snuffing out his life while wearing a calm smile. What happens next is one of the most heartbreaking deaths of a beloved character, and Yuji gets the front seat. Mahito continues hunting Yuji, using people Yuji cares about as weapons to crush his spirit. He targets Nobara Kugisaki next and lands a soul-crushing blow that leaves her lifeless, right in front of Yuji once again. He's not just killing people, he's trying to break Yuji completely and force him to question his reason for fighting. The Shibuya incident becomes Mahito's playground, pushing him to evolve further as he uses Black Flash and takes on a new form, Instant Spirit Body of Distorted Killing. This form gives him overwhelming speed, strength, and nearly unbreakable skin. He believes that this is the start of his true life, that his existence finally has purpose in killing Yuji. He throws everything at Yuji, fighting with relentless aggression in the ruined streets of Shibuya. Yuji, refusing to break, fights back with Black Flash, chipping away at Mahito's confidence. In the final moments, he tries to bait Yuji into a killing blow, confident in his own victory, but Yuji surprises him with Divergent Fist that throws him off balance. Toto later joins in and tricks him with Boogie Woogie, leaving him wide open. Yuji smashes him out of his ultimate form, leaving him weak, terrified, and desperate. He tries to vomit out more transfigured humans as shields, until nothing comes out and he becomes empty. He sees Yuji standing over him, calm and clear, declaring that he will keep killing him no matter how many times he returns. For the first time, he knows fear as he scrambles to escape the one human he couldn't break. His power, pride, and twisted joy crumble as he trips over himself, unable to run. Then comes the final satisfying end. Pseudo-Geto appears and uses cursed spirit manipulation to seal Mahito and absorb him without effort. This once grinning monster, who laughed at every plea for mercy, is reduced to nothing more than a tool, consumed and stripped of all agency. After everything, his end is quiet, humiliating, and final. The same system he used to spread chaos turned around and erased him without fanfare. It's satisfying because after everything Mahito did, he didn't get a grand exit. He just got taken out and used as a tool, leaving nothing behind. Clayman. Clayman is one of those villains who loves stirring chaos from the shadows. He's a demon lord from the 10 Great Demon Lords era, but instead of fighting up front, He'd rather pull strings and watch others suffer. He set up the Orc Disaster, using Gelma to try and create a puppet demon lord to control, all while pretending to be helpful to Milim, Carrion, and Frey. When that plan flopped, he sent Buren to spy on the victors and didn't stop there. He manipulated Phobio into becoming the host of Charybdis, just so it would attack Milim and Tempest while aiming to earn Frey's favor. And it worked. It let him gather more influence while preparing for something even bigger. He wanted to awaken as a true demon lord by sacrificing souls, so he had Buren cast an anti-magic barrier over Rimuru City, isolating them while working with his benefactor to send Hinata to kill Rimuru. But Rimuru survived, destroyed Falmouth's army, and became a true demon lord himself, flipping Clayman's plan back on his face. Thinking Rimuru's power came from Veldora's revival, he plotted to control Veldora too. He also pushed Milim to destroy Carrion's country, branding Carrion a traitor while using the Orb of Domination to control Milim. He tried to threaten Frey to stay in line, ignoring Laplace's warnings about his reckless moves. He called for Walpurgis, aiming to crush Rimuru, sending his army and Milim's Dragon Faithful to attack Tempest. But Milim and Frey turned on him, revealing that Milim was never under his control. Carrion was alive, and Tempest was ready for him. Clayman was exposed as a pawn working for Yuki, and at Walpurgis, Rimuru stepped up to end it. Even half awakened as a true demon lord, Clayman couldn't stand a chance. Rimuru devoured his ultimate attacks and beat him down while using thought acceleration, making Clayman's suffering feel endless before finishing him off for good. Clayman's death is one of the most satisfying in anime because he spent so long scheming, manipulating, and trying to break others while acting untouchable, only to get crushed by the very people he underestimated. His end is short, but sweet, serving justice for everything he did while proving that the shadows can't hide a villain forever. Clementine. Clementine is a killer who thrives on pain and chaos. She was once the ninth seed of the slain theocracy's Black Scripture, but turned her back on them, stealing the magical crown of wisdom from one of the 6 Miko princesses before fleeing her homeland. After going rogue, she joined Zuranorn for protection and became one of its 12 executives, and used her new freedom to indulge in her twisted cravings for torture and murder. She's a sadist who hunts strong adventurers, kills them, and collects their tags as trophies. Fighting and killing isn't just work for her, it's something that she enjoys, making sure every victim knows fear before she finishes them off. Her cruelty doesn't stop there. She pairs up with Khajiit to help turn Irantel into a city of death by using Enfria Bariare and Khajiit's ritual of death. She doesn't care about the plan's true purpose. She's more interested in the chaos it will cause. On the way to meeting Khajiit, she crosses paths with a group of 4 workers she planned to hire to survey Lizzie Bariare's home. Her bloodlust takes over and she kills 3 of them for fun, using mind control on the last one to force him to obey her. When she meets Khajiit again, she attacks him just to amuse herself, leaving him to curse her insanity. The next day, she storms Lizzie's home, kidnaps Enfria, and brutally murders the adventurers of the Sword of Darkness, leaving fake clues to mislead Momon into the sewers. She thinks she's untouchable, while enjoying every second of the fear she spreads, but her confidence becomes her downfall when she faces Ainz, disguised as Momon. Momon sees through her traps and tracks her to the cemetery using the metal she stole from the Swords of Darkness. She tries to take him down using her advanced martial arts, and lands a blow that would kill most beings in the New World, but the strike does nothing as Momon, an undead far above her level, is immune to her attacks. Realizing she made her last mistake, she struggles in vain when he pins her down. Her end isn't quick. Her body is slowly crushed as her bones snap, leaving her completely powerless before the life drains from her eyes, with her body getting crushed beyond recognition. For someone who spent her life laughing while others suffered, it's a fitting end. She gets to feel the fear she forced on countless victims, and there's no escape or clever trick to save her. Watching her arrogance shatter while facing someone she can't beat and seeing her terror before death is a perfect end for a sadistic killer who thought that she could get away with everything. Shishio Makoto. Shishio Makoto is the ruthless force behind the Kyoto arc, a Hitokiri who took over after Himura Kenshin stepped away from secret killings. He started out as Kenshin's successor among the Ishin Shishi, known for finishing jobs quickly and brutally. One of his first targets was Izuka, a traitor to the Chosu party. Shishio made sure that betrayal was paid for in blood. While Kenshin fought for people's safety, he only cared about power. After burning Izuka, he saw the weakness in the new Meiji government and decided he'd take Japan for himself. The government knew he was a threat, so they knocked him out, drenched him in oil, and set him on fire to erase him for good. But he crawled out of the flames, barely alive, skin burnt to a crisp, wrapped in bandages like a walking corpse. The fire ruined his sweat glands, so every fight risked him overheating and burning alive from the inside if it dragged on too long. Even half-burned, he refused to die quietly. With help from Sarojima Hoji, he gathered the strongest fighters he could find, forming the Jupan Katana, his personal army. His vision was simple: Japan ruled by him, where the weak would feed the strong. He made Seta Sojiro his right hand, and true believer in his survival of the strongest creed. He even planned to boost Japan's power with petroleum once he had control. When Kenshin and Saito started hunting him, he stayed a step ahead. In Kyoto, he set up a fake plan to burn the city, just to cover up his real move, attacking Tokyo with a steel battleship, the Rengoku. Kenshin, Saito, and Sanosuke blew up the Rengoku before it reached Tokyo, but he slipped away with Sojiro, Hoji, and Komogata Yumi, his lover. He wasn't finished. He called Kenshin out for a final fight at Mount Hiei, sending his 10 swords to slaughter Kenshin's friends while he kept his strongest close. One by one, the 10 swords failed. When Kenshin arrived after his intense battle with Aoshi and Sojiro, he still faced Shishio head-on. Shishio crushed Kenshin early on, then beat Saito and Sanosuke too. Even Aoshi's interference only bought time. Kenshin dug deep, pushed past every wound, and unleashed his strongest attack, Amakakere Ryu no Hirameki, to blast Shishio's battered body into meltdown mode. As his body overheated, Yumi stepped in to protect him, but ended up stabbed through the heart when he rammed his sword through her to hit Kenshin. Bleeding and scorched, he forced himself back up, determined to kill Kenshin with whatever life he had left, but his ruined body couldn't handle it. With every swing, his temperature shot up until his blood turned to steam. His skin and fat finally caught fire from the inside out. He laughed like a madman as his own flames ate him alive, turning him and Yumi both into ashes. He burned the same way the government tried to kill him years before, a twisted end fitting for a man who lived by devouring the weak. Watching him melt away is satisfying because it proved power built on cruelty eats itself in the end. He murdered, manipulated, and planned to turn all of Japan into his playground of violence, only to lose everything to his own unstoppable rage and a body too ruined to keep up with his ambition. Shishio didn't bow to anyone, not even death, but in the end, his own fire made sure no one had to lift a sword to finish him off. Seryu Ubiquitous. Seryu Ubiquitous is one of the most twisted faces of justice in anime. She was once part of the Imperial Police before joining the Jaegers, where her obsession with punishing evil grew into a full-blown bloodlust. Underneath the sweet, smiling face, she was a ruthless killer who enjoyed tearing down anyone she labeled as a villain, and treated murder as her personal hobby. She admired her father and Captain Ogre, who both died at the hands of revolutionaries, fueling her unhinged drive to wipe out anyone tied to them. This thirst for revenge led her to let Dr. Stylish implant weapons into her body so she could kill more efficiently. She was always seen with Koro, her loyal but monstrous biological Tegu, who shared in her cruelty. Early on, she crossed paths with Tatsumi, unaware he was part of Night Raid. Later, she faced Shell and Mine in battle. After losing her forearms to Shell, she revealed hidden guns in her arms and tried to shoot her down. Even when those were destroyed, she had a gun hidden in her mouth and used it to fatally wound Shell while Koro devoured her, leaving Mine to escape with Shell's death burned into her memory. She didn't stop there. During missions with the Jaegers, she unleashed her arsenal and Koro's brutality by slaughtering bandits without mercy. After Dr. Stylish's death, she grieved for him and swore to kill every member of Night Raid to honor what she considered justice. Her devotion to wiping out Night Raid only grew stronger, leading her to devour the body of Chelsea with Koro, showing no remorse as she took trophies from her enemies. When the Jaegers tracked down Night Raid at the Path to Peace, she remained confident that only Tegu users could kill other Tegu users, eager to prove herself. It wasn't long before she encountered Mai and Tatsumi again, furious that Tatsumi was working with Night Raid. She attacked them without hesitation, hoping to finally wipe them out. Mine and Seryu's battle was brutal. Mine, remembering Shell and Chelsea, pushed her Tegu, Pumpkin, to its limits, blasting Koro apart and nearly destroying his core. But Seryu wasn't done. She forced Koro into Berserker mode and tried to turn the tide, while she launched every hidden weapon she had at Mine. Mine stayed sharp and destroyed everything Seryu threw at her before landing a shot that left Seryu injured and furious. Seryu tried to end Mine with her lightning speed punches, but her wounds slowed her down. With Koro and Seryu attacking from both sides, Mine tapped into Pumpkin's full power, splitting Koro and Seryu in half in a single clean strike. Even as her body was torn apart, Seryu refused to accept defeat. Her final act was to trigger the bomb inside her, hoping to take Mine with her in death. But Tatsumi pulled Mine away just in time, leaving Seryu and Koro to be consumed in the blast they created and turned them to ash. Her end, dying in the flames of her own last resort, is the perfect punishment for someone who lived to torture others, ensuring that her twisted brand of justice burned away with her. Muzan Kibutsuji. Muzan Kibutsuji is the Demon King and the first demon to ever exist, the one who started the nightmare that would haunt humanity for over 1,000 years. Back in the Heian era, he was just a sickly man desperate to avoid death. A mysterious treatment saved him, but it also turned him into a demon, making him immortal while taking away everything human about him. He spent the next 1,000 years trying to perfect himself, aiming to become a true immortal, free from every weakness, especially the sun. To reach that goal, he searched for the blue spider lily, the flower used in the medicine that transformed him into a demon, while turning countless people into demons, hoping one would conquer sunlight. His ultimate plan is to consume that demon so that he can absorb the power to conquer the sun. Once he learned he can create demons with his blood, he built an army, giving them regeneration, immortality, and powerful blood demon arts. But they were never his allies. They were disposable tools to him. If they failed, they were dead weight, proven when he wiped out most of the lower moons in one night just because they disappointed him. He was a master manipulator. He turned Tamayo into a demon without her consent, and forced her to kill her own family, then lied to make her believe it was her fault. He twisted Rui's idea of family to keep him loyal, and used Daki's emotions to control her brother. Civilians who annoyed him didn't even get a chance to beg. He killed them without a thought, including a drunk who bumped into him and his friends. One of his worst acts was against the Kamado family. Seeing them as test subjects, he killed them all in cold blood and turned Nezuko into a demon, setting the entire story of Demon Slayer in motion and creating Tanjiro's reason to join the Demon Slayer Corps. Muzan also cursed the Ubuyashiki family, making every generation suffer from the same illness he had before becoming a demon. He ruled the 12 Kizuki, commanding the strongest demons while hiding in the shadows, always a step ahead with his 5 brains and centuries of experience. His regenerations was so fast that blades seemed useless, and he could change his appearance, shape his flesh into weapons, and unleash deadly whip-like attacks. After finding out that Nezuko is able to withstand sunlight, he prepares to battle the Demon Slayer Corps to get his hands on her. During his final battle, he turned into a monster, with arms covered in mouths and tentacles lined with blades, cutting down countless demon slayers who gave their lives to protect the Hashira and buy time until sunrise. Tanjiro kept up relentless attacks with Sun breathing while frustrating him with his persistence. With less than an hour before dawn, Tanjiro and Obanai pushed him further, forcing him to consider fleeing. He tried splitting himself to escape, but Tamayo's drug, injected before her death, stopped him from regenerating properly. As dawn approached, Inosuke and Zenitsu jumped in, landing blows that slowed him down, allowing Tanjiro to pin him in place. Muzan, in a panic, unleashed shockwaves that tore apart anyone close, but couldn't shake Tanjiro off. As the sun rose, he transformed into a massive monstrous baby to shield himself from the light, and escape after absorbing Tanjiro, crushing demon slayers in his way while others used everything they could to block him, from throwing shelves to ramming him with vehicles. Gyome and the remaining slayers chained him and pulled him back into the sun, while Giyu, Sanemi, and Obanai attacked to drain his stamina. As the chains finally snapped, it looked like he might escape, but Tanjiro, still inside him, managed to ignite his blade and burn him from the inside. Under the rising sun, Muzan, who once saw himself as untouchable, burned away, screaming as his body turned to ash. The Demon King, who created centuries of fear, death, and sorrow, finally fell, and the endless war ended with the Demon Slayer's victory at the heavy cost of several lives from the Demon Slayer Corps. Watching him turn to ash under the sun, surrounded by those who fought to protect humanity, closed the chapter on a monster who thought he was eternal, proving that he could be brought down. Nnoitra Gilga. Nnoitra Gilga was the fifth Espada under Aizen, embodying the depth of despair with a twisted hunger for violence and dominance. In Bleach, Ichigo and the Soul Society have dealt with plenty of villains, but the 10 Espadas really stand out. Most of them got taken down in pretty satisfying ways, but none of them topped the way that Nnoitra went out. Haribel actually cares about her fracciones like they're her sisters. Stark is too lazy to care about anything, Grimjo's all about fighting fair, Okiura just does his job, and even Yami has a soft spot for his pet dog. But Nnoitra? He's in a different league of ruthless, right up there with Arenero and Silaporo, with zero care for anyone but himself. Years before, while still the 8th Espada, he wiped out entire hollow colonies for fun, ignoring Aizen's orders just because he felt like it, and constantly picked fights with Nell, the former 3rd Espada, because he was unable to stand that a woman could overpower him so easily. He kept pushing for battle with her, calling her weak for showing mercy while plotting to betray her. Teaming up with Silaporo, he ambushed Nell, shattered her mask, and threw her unconscious body off Las Noches, pleased with himself as she reverted to a child, thinking he had erased her forever. Also, he could keep climbing the ranks by betraying those stronger than him. Later, in Hueco Mundo, he intercepted Ichigo's group, destroyed Chad effortlessly, and took pleasure in tormenting Orihime when he forced her to watch as he crushed Ichigo and kicked a returned Nell when she reverted to her child form mid-battle. He savored the chaos while slicing up Ichigo, showing off his arrogance and cruelty as he beat down everyone in his way just to prove he was the strongest, even attacking the defeated Grimjo for fun. When Kenpachi Zaraki arrived, Nnoitra finally found the brutal fight he'd always claimed he wanted. He bragged about his impenetrable hierro and regenerating arms as he tore into Kenpachi, trying to kill him with everything he had, using all 6 of his arms to hack away, convinced that he was unkillable and destined to prove himself by defeating a captain in raw combat. But Kenpachi, enjoying every moment, stopped holding back, and used Kendo to deliver a monstrous 2-handed strike that nearly split Nnoitra in half. Refusing to die, Nnoitra dragged himself up, screaming that the fight wasn't over, demanding Kenpachi keep fighting only to be cut down again. As he lay dying, he locked eyes with Nell, who had just awakened to see the end of the man who ruined her life, and in that moment, all of his pride shattered with him. His death is satisfying because he spent his entire existence trying to dominate others and prove himself by hurting the weak and challenging the strong for pride, only to lose to someone who wasn't fighting to prove anything. Kenpachi simply fought because he enjoyed it, and that was enough to crush Noitra's arrogance. Deep Sea King. Deep Sea King ruled over the sea folk and loved nothing more than causing pain. He didn't just want the surface, he wanted to rule it with everyone beneath him, literally seeing humans as snacks. Arrogant and dripping with pride, he believed himself to be at the top of the food chain. After Stinger wiped out his underlings, he emerged from the sea and knocked the hero out cold with a single punch, then moved on to Lightning Max and shrugged off the hero's attacks like they were nothing, before punching him across the street and through a building. Puri Puri Prisoner tried to stop him, but even after transforming and tearing through his own clothes for power, the S-Class hero couldn't keep up once the demon-level monster healed himself and smashed him through a building. Sonic attempted to stall him as his speed allowed him to dodge blow after blow, but the rain came down, allowing Deep Sea King to return to his full terrifying form. Sonic barely escaped, leaving the monster to continue his rampage. He stormed the evacuation center, ripped through walls while people screamed, and laughed as weaker heroes tried to stop him. He smashed them down without breaking a sweat while enjoying their terror. Genos showed up and managed to land a heavy blow that launched the monster through multiple buildings, but it only made him madder. He tore off Genos' arm, spat acid at a child, and mocked Genos for shielding the kid and taking the acid instead. The acid burned through Genos, but the Deep Sea King didn't care. He wanted them all to suffer. Then Moomin Rider stepped in, knowing he couldn't win but refusing to back down. Deep Sea King easily tossed him aside, thinking it was over, but Mumen Rider got up again, charging in despite knowing it was pointless, in one of the most inspiring scenes in the series. Despite his bravery and strong will, the Deep Sea King smashed him with a final blow, sending him into Saitama's arms. Finally, Saitama stepped up, and the Deep Sea King, as full of himself as ever, tried to crush him like the others. But Saitama didn't even flinch. The monster, furious at being ignored, unleashed a powerful strike meant to end it, but Saitama ended him instead with a single punch that ripped through the monster's body, dropping him dead on the spot. Most villains in One Punch Man get the classic treatment. One punch, lights out, thanks for playing. But out of all of those quick knockouts, nothing beats the pure satisfaction of watching Saitama end Deep Sea's King reign of terror with just one punch. That's Karma doing a speedrun. After all the noise he made about being King of the Sea, he ended up as just another wet stain on the pavement, reminding everyone that sometimes the loudest villains are also the easiest to swat away. Petelgeuse Romanee-Conti. Petelgeuse Romanee-Conti was a Sin Archbishop of the Witch Cult, representing Sloth. He started as a lesser earth spirit over 400 years ago, helped co-found the Witch Cult, and mingled with figures like Echidna and Flugel. He tutored Beatrice, befriended Fortuna, and met Amelia, who unknowingly became his obsession. His downward spiral began when he took in the witch factor of Sloth to fight off Regulus and Pandora, which twisted his mind after he accidentally killed Fortuna and drove him insane. He later fully embraced Sloth, joined the witches cult's radical faction, and earned a notorious reputation for wiping out villages while following his gospel, believing he was fulfilling the Witch of Envy's will. He was notorious for leading massacres and attempting to use Amelia as a vessel for the Witch of Envy, orchestrating the slaughter of Arlem Village while plotting attacks on Waswall's mansion. He used his fingers to infiltrate, torture, and kill anyone in the way, and delighted in spreading misery. He killed Rem using his unseen hands, twisted bodies until they broke, and crushed resistance without remorse, driven by delusions of love for Satella. During his final stand, he fought relentlessly, using his unseen hands against Subaru and allies, refusing to accept defeat as Subaru baited him into traps and confrontations. Even after his body was destroyed multiple times, he possessed cultists and tried to take Subaru's body to continue his madness. Subaru and Julius confronted him, and Petelgeuse, desperate to fulfill his ordeal, unleashed waves of unseen hands, only to be countered and sliced down by spirit-infused attacks. In his final moments, his soul encountered the Witch of Envy, only to be rejected, realizing the witch never loved him. This shattered his sanity further. His death was brutal and well-deserved. Even as a burning, broken corpse, he chased Subaru while being driven by twisted devotion. Subaru lured him, punched him off the wagon, and baited him with his own gospel, making him reach out in desperation before getting his body caught and torn apart by the wagon's wheel. As he screamed Subaru's name, his relentless evil finally ended, leaving nothing but silence. Seeing his gospel used against him, the witch's rejection, and Subaru's refusal to bow to his madness flipped the power he held over others back onto him. His final screams as his body was mangled felt like the world delivering karma to the villain who truly deserved it, ending his twisted devotion and cruelty with a brutal finality that it warranted. Charles and Marianne v. Britannia. Charles and Marianne v. Britannia were nightmares dressed up as parents. Charles, the 98th Emperor of Britannia, wasn't just a tyrant ruling half the world. He treated his children like disposable chess pieces in his personal game to weed out the weak and find the strongest. He had over 100 consorts and saw his kids as tools, not humans, placing them in power just to watch who survived. The worst part is that he didn't even flinch when Lelouch's mother was murdered and Nanali was left paralyzed and blind. He dumped Lelouch and Nanali in Japan to be used as bargaining chips for resources before turning around and invading the country anyway. Marianne, the Empress, wore a sweet mask, but she was just as twisted. Once a Knight of the Round, she helped overthrow the last Emperor so Charles could take the throne, aligning herself with his warped dream of forcing the entire world to become one mind without lies or individuality. She pretended to love her children, but was fully prepared to step over them to reach her goals, ready to erase free will to create their so-called perfect world. Both of them wanted to kill God, the collective unconscious of humanity, and merge every mind into one hive mind under their control. They hid behind flowery words of ending lies, while ignoring the rivers of blood caused by Britannia's conquest, including the chaos that Lelouch himself unleashed. They thought they had it all planned out. Marianne faked her death using her Gios, hiding in the shadows with Charles while they prepared the Ragnarok Connection, a cosmic event to erase human individuality forever. They even tried to rope Lelouch into their plan, claiming they wanted the same world he did, but Lelouch wasn't buying it. When they met inside the Thought Elevator at Command Island, he called them out for the hypocrites they were, tearing down every excuse they made about love and peace. Charles, with his unkillable body, thought he was untouchable. Marianne, with her hidden Gios power, thought she could outsmart everyone. Lelouch used his Gios, not on them, but on the system itself, connecting with the very god they were trying to kill. And with that, Charles and Marianne were erased from existence, their bodies disintegrating into nothing, powerless against the sun they had used as a pawn. Their death is easily one of the most satisfying in anime. They spent their lives clinging to power and trying to control everyone, only to get wiped out by the very system they wanted to rule. In the end, it was their own son who took them down, who refused to be another pawn in their twisted game. They vanished into nothing, leaving Lelouch free to shape the world his way, without their mess dragging him down. Chizuru Kirishiki. Chizuru Kirishiki lived for the thrill of the hunt. Before she became a Shiki, she lost her husband to war and never had kids. But after Sanako turned her into one of the undead, she slipped right into the role of a twisted mother. She found Seishiro, a rich kid who hated his family, killed his parents without a second thought, and pulled him into her world, letting him stick around as her husband while they both played house for Sanako. When the Kirishiki clan moved to Sotaba, she didn't waste any time. She killed Megumi, who became the first Shiki to rise in the village, to kickstart their quiet invasion. She loved it. She saw the villagers as nothing more than walking meals, preferring young men for her blood feast, enjoying every second as more and more people fell to the plague of the Shiki. She didn't stop at feeding. She targeted Dr. Toshio Ozaki, the village doctor who was getting too close to the truth about their kind. With Seishiro's help, she bit Toshio, slowly draining him to put him under her control. Victims didn't die instantly. They first fell under a Shiki's influence, then died after repeated feeding, eventually rising as a Shiki themselves if they were lucky. Some even turned into Jinro, which can walk under the sun. Confident that she had Toshio under her thumb, Chizuru ordered him to erase all evidence of the Shiki from medical records and surrender himself to them. Toshio played along and invited her out to the village festival, and Chizuru, tired of hiding, agreed to go out on a date with him. She walked through the streets while enjoying the small talk with villagers, but as they approached the heart of the festival, she grew uneasy with her fear rising with each step. Then it all came crashing down. Toshio, who she believed was under her control, wasn't. Unknown to her, he had been bitten first by Natsuno, a newly turned Jinro who commanded Toshio to live by his own will, making Chizuru's hypnosis useless. Realizing too late that she had been tricked by Natsuno and Toshio, she tried to escape, but the villagers caught on. Megumi's father recognized her perfume from his daughter's room, connecting her to his daughter's death. The crowd surrounded her, checking her pulse and finding none. Panic turned to fury as the villagers realized what she was. They attacked, threw rocks at her, knocked her down multiple times, and when she tried to fight back, they pinned her down and slammed her head on the ground. Her fear turned to desperation as she begged for her life. Watching the predator now becoming the prey is just pure cinematic justice. Every cry and scream she makes feels like justice being served to every innocent person she kills. After Toshio tells them how to ultimately end a Shiki's life, Megumi's father drives the stake into her heart to end her reign of terror for good. Her brutal death at the hands of the angry villagers would ignite the fiery clash between the living and the undead in the once peaceful village of Sotoba. King Sweyn. King Sweyn was the Danish king who conquered almost all of England and Wales while keeping a tight grip on his northern territories. His sharp mind, brutality, and iron rule kept everything under his thumb. Power wasn't just land and people for him, it was the crown itself, a symbol he believed demanded endless conquest from anyone who wore it. He crushed threats without a hint of remorse, clearing out anything in his path to keep his dominance over the North and England. This hunger for control even seeped into the small moments of his life. When young Canute tried to share a simple gesture by cooking for him, he snapped, calling it a slave's work. It wasn't just cold parenting, it was his way of reminding everyone, even his own child, where power stood and who had it. Out of all his children, he saw Canute as nothing but dead weight, a soft, quiet boy unworthy of notice, always standing in the way of Harald, the son he favored. Canute himself saw through it, knowing Swinn never cared for him and would rather see him dead. Swinn believed the crown controlled its wearer, forcing them into an endless loop of greed and conquest, just like it did with him and his father. This twisted belief justified every atrocity he committed, fueling his ambition to take everything he could. His final moment came when he tried to corner Askeladd into betraying Wales. Using manipulation and veiled threats, he pressured Askeladd to either hand over Wales or Canute. He didn't care about Wales as he saw as only another pawn in his game, and dug into Askeladd's past, mocking his mother's status as a slave and Wales's worth. He assumed he had total control, like always, using insults to push others into submission while keeping his own power intact. But he underestimated Askeladd. In a flash of steel and resolve, Askeladd turned on him and declared that he didn't deserve the crown he worshipped so much. Before anyone could react, Askeladd swung his blade and took Swinn's head, ending the rule of a man who saw himself above all, in front of his shocked court. A king who spent his life controlling others fell in a single moment, powerless at the hands of the man he tried to manipulate, leaving the path clear for Canute to rise and Wales to escape Denmark's grip. In the end, the man who thought he could conquer everything was conquered himself, with the crown slipping from his lifeless body for good.